using the 500-volt power supply. So, thinking about it now, yeah, I could have.
Well, if you'd known then what you know now.
Right, if I know then what I know now, I could have turned that into a transmitter. But that was kind of the infantile start of it all. And it leads, I mean, how long, all right, I'm 62 today. And how long have I been doing broadcasting? I have been doing broadcasting, I guess, since the late, well, let's see, 72, 82. So 72 would make it, it's like 40, 50. I've been doing it close to 50 years now.
Huh.
You think by now I'd get it right?
You'd think.
But yeah, I remember that, and of course, that was back in the 60s when AM radio was king. We're going to check in with Norm and talk a little bit more about AM radio with him.
Yeah.
FM, I didn't even think about FM. FM was on the air, but it used to play all that classical music and stuff like that nobody
that's how FM
that nobody listened to.
That's how FM started.
Yeah.
The quality classical radio station.
Well, FM in New York City when I was growing up played some FM stations were simulcast, where the AMs were simulcasted on the FMs.
Yeah.
In the early 60s. I forgot when they forbid that in markets the size of New York. And that's when FM radio really got cool.
Mm-hmm.
See, there was a period in the late 50s, early 60s, a lot of your major AM stations in the New York City area were simulcasting on FM.
Yeah.
And to promote the band, the FCC came in and says, no, you're too big a market, you got to separate. And that's when, because they were loss leaders, there were no advertising.
Yeah.
The AMs were the powerhouse. So that's when the FMs in New York, for a very short period of time, got really interesting. They would hire all these, and I forgot some of the names and whatever, maybe you folks know. They would hire all these kind of like freaked out, way out jocks, and they'd start playing, the new rock and roll. And they'd start playing albums.
Yeah.
And they'd play album cuts and album sides, and they'd start experimenting with the new rock and roll music.
Because AM radio was more 3-minute singles and...
Yeah, right. AM radio was more top 40 and variety, and of course the AM market scene back in the early 60s, mid 60s. You had MCA and ABC and I think WINS for a while that were doing top 40. And then the rest of them were doing mood music and variety, and WOR, which was even today is still a powerhouse, was doing kind of a variety format with a little bit of talk and a little bit of news. Not talk radio like we know today. I mean, I think there were some weekend shows that they did where they'd have people call in and interact, but it was
like a novelty, though.
It was a novelty.
It was still new.
It was a novelty. But the FM in the mid-60s, 60, 64, 65, 66, of course, the Summer of Love in 67 and everything, and I remember listening to them, and they were, playing all this great music, this great rock and roll stuff that nobody was playing on AM at all. And it was kind of a little bit of a renaissance period, because as I said, they were running the FMs as loss leaders, not too many spots, not too many advertisements on them, or interruptions, not like today. I don't understand how major FM stations keep listeners, because they load up their commercials with so many interruptions. That I can't even listen to it, and I'm a broadcaster, and I understand what they're trying to do. But that was a unique period, and that was the period that we came in on. When we built the pirate stations in the basement of my house and JP's mom's house and my dad's house, we were kind of walking into that. We were. For those of you that are too young to remember, there was no internet. radio and television were king. And radio in the 50s and 60s were going through a little bit of a transition period from the major supplier of entertainment into the home to a different entertainment,
an alternative.
Right.
Yeah.
It got a little bit jukeboxy with the top 40 and the screamers and all that. But that was a evolution that we still have today. And it was fascinating. And I remember, living in Yonkers, so close to New York City, I had an old Zenith, another Zenith, 50s set, but it had AM/FM shortwave on it. And the FM tuner and the power amp in it was great. I mean, I had it hooked up to an external antenna, and I'd pick up all the FM stations coming out of New York, and listening to all the really super sexy FM jocks at night, talking in a very low voice and introducing one interesting tune after the other. It was an exciting time. It really was. And now, of course, radio's going through an evolutionary, certainly not a revolutionary process now.
But that exciting period of FM with good music kind of went away.
Oh yeah,
the pirates kind of picked up on supplying that in the sense.
Right. The pirates, right? The pirates. Some of the pirates. The FM. By the way, emails open WBCQ@WBCQ.com. The FM pirates today in the city areas are not the same FM pirates that I grew up with. Now, I'm not saying that just because I'm 62 years old today, folks. A lot of the FM pirates that are operating in the cities now a lot of them are ethnic, which is fine. But a lot of them are brazen. I mean, they sell spots, they sell commercials. They're basically a commercial enterprise. They're not, they don't have the same. This is an opinion of mine. They don't have the same thing going that we did when, first, as you know, the history of, if you've read the book or go to the website or whatever, folks, we first started out on AM radio in the late 60s.
Yep.
And then quickly we migrated, thanks to my good pal Albert Langella, good man, good friend. We migrated to FM, and we did that in 1970. Albert and I built our first FM transmitter using an SCR 522 VHF World War II aircraft transmitter. We modified it to put out 50 watts using an 829B. Albert built a reactance tube modulator, and we put it on the air in the early 1970s. And when we put that station on the air and put WXMN on 108.1, because the band ends at 107.9. We went on 108.1. And we put that station on the air. Everything changed overnight. I mean, the phones didn't stop ringing. The AM station that we were running on 1620 was cool. I mean, especially at night, we'd get reports all up and down the East Coast and, back, as far west as Chicago and areas like that, because we were running 300 watts with a BC 610. But when we did FM, it changed everything.
Did you tell people on the AM that the FM was coming? Is that?
Yeah. No, we didn't. Because I remember, I'm trying to remember, when we first went on with the FM, I built a turnstile antenna, which I strapped to Dad's sunroof, and with about 50 watts, we put it on the air, and we had a phone line that we were. I commandeered the folks' telephone line. What was the number? 985. I can't. Do I remember my old phone number? Let's see. 9658977. I think our old phone number. And don't dial this because it's probably still being used now. I think our old phone number was 9658977. I stand corrected. JP might remember it better than I. But when we went on FM, this was like 69, 70. it was like night and day. The phones started ringing from people all over the tri-state area because FM radio was the cool place to listen to radio.
So people found it because they were tuning around looking for stuff.
Right, especially among, my peer group. Because we were all kids. I was, 15, 16 years old. We were all teenagers. Doing crazy and impulsive things as teenagers do. But that's what we're supposed to do. And we signed on the FM, and it was just overnight. I mean, we just started picking up listeners left and right. AM was just, we still did it because it was still the dominant medium. But as far as the people that were listening to the stuff that we were doing, it was night and day. And we were, thanks to Larry Frumke's, and I've talked about this before, and a lot of other people, that we had programming the station. We had a great music library of all the Woodstock and pre-Woodstock and rock and roll and Beatles, and
you had friends with albums.
Yeah, we had friends with great music collections. And because everything there was phonograph. All we had was bummed phonographs. I remember I grabbed my father's garage turntable and grabbed that and installed that, and